All right. Welcome back to Seward Sound Words here in Seward, Alaska on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward. I'm very happy to be sitting here with my friends. Carrie Dean Feldman and Tami Phelps are here from Anchorage to talk about their book, The Woman Within. We're rolling along here. We got stuff going on. It's an active day in Seward. The Woman Within is their new book, Memory as Muse. This is put out by Cirque Press, a press that we have in common. I want to say welcome, guys. How are you doing today, Carrie, Tami?
Thank you. Doing well. As you mentioned, a lot of activity. There's a lot of construction out there, but we made it. So It's really great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting us.
You're welcome. I'm glad we could connect on it. Very nice to meet you, Tami, today. And Carrie, we go back a bit. We met at Sandy Cleven's house. We're both Cirque Press authors, and then we've had a really nice email back and forth going on that, really gives me a lot of boost, a lot of humor, just a lot of keep going, I think, both of us. So I want to keep that going.
Well, I agree, Sean. And it's great to be here. We love Seward. We come to Seward almost every summer, and we're never disappointed because we have people like you and some other folks here that we like a lot.
That's great to hear. The people, I do stress that too. You look around, of course, we've got the landscape and that beauty, but it is the community that really sets Seward apart, I think. So let me do a little proper introduction of you two. Tami Phelps is a cold wax artist. She's going to tell us a little bit about cold wax for those of you like me who don't know a lot about that medium. And she just had her painting. These are called cold wax paintings. It's called Catch and Release, was selected to be included at the London Art Biennale 2023. She just came back from London where she did, well, that was an award. The art sold. We'll talk about that.
Sure.
And then Tami, she put out this book along with Carrie and photographer Richard J. Murphy, The Woman Within, Memory as Muse. We're going to focus on this today. We're going to cover some other books that you guys have put out as you guys have been busy with the book making. Tami also has a book put out through Cirque Press called Miss Tami is Today, Tomorrow, Kindergarten in Alaska, Stories for Grown-Ups, which is a great title. So very prolific and very much looking forward to talking with you. And then Carrie here, his first book with Cirque was Drunk on Love, 12 Stories to Savor Responsibly. And then Carrie went on and did a novel called Alice's Trading Post with the press.
5-Star Press in Maine.
5-Star Press. So those came out kind of back to back. Carrie wrote some poetry for The Woman Within. Carrie is Professor Emeritus, Anthropology, Alaska Anchorage. So I just want to read a blurb that David McElroy wrote for The Woman Within, because this also features a photographer. So Richard J. Murphy's evocative photographs inspire Phelps's dramatic assemblage pieces and Feldman's words in the Amaryllis life cycle stories. The book is intuitively lyrical, a perceptive look into the mysteries of childhood, a celebration of love and the complexity of the feminine muse. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Absolutely.
The Woman Within.
Fun. Real fun.
So you were talking about cold wax.
And
many people know about, well, more and more people are getting to know about cold wax. I'll preface it by saying most people know about encaustic wax painting, and cold wax is a cousin to encaustic. Encaustic painting is painting where you need particular ventilation, and it's heating the wax. And so you need to have the ventilation for the fumes. When the encaustic wax dries, it has a real sheen to it. It's a real slick surface.
Okay.
Cold wax, you don't need as much ventilation. And that's one of the reasons I chose it, because my studio used to be called the upstairs, but now it's really a studio.
Nice.
With the cold wax, it's kind of like a shortening or a frosting.
Okay.
And to that, then you add the oil pigment. You mix it up, and typically I paint on cradle boards, which is a hard surface. And I paint with palette knives, and I collect different things that make a lot of texture, and a tool called a squeegee that's pretty much like a spatula.
Mhm.
and you smooth it and you add layers of paint. And depending on how dry the paint is, it's a slow process because cold wax cures not from heat like in caustic, but through evaporation. And so it cures over time. And if I paint a very thin first layer on my board, by the next day it's dry enough to add another layer, and so on. And then I can scratch back with different tools to reveal what's underneath it. So it's kind of like storytelling that has the surface underneath that you can work with. A lot of times it's a surprise. If you really, really want to make sure that you're scratching back to something red or green or what have you, you take pictures as you go and you kind of have a map. But typically I don't do that. It's kind of more organic and a little bit more abstract. And there's a particular section in my book, actually the cover is there are a group of paintings in the book where I have adhered the little dress, and I'll go into it more, but I've adhered the dress and then I paint on top of that. So the dress is kind of my canvas, and you can kind of see where I've scratched back to make some textures, and then also painting on top of it. And I've used the wrinkles in the dress to define the roots and so forth. But that's in short what cold wax is. And I
Wonderful
love it.
description. Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, just glancing through this book, which I just got. Thank you guys. You really see it working with the dress, the fabric, the just feel of it.
Yeah,
and just,
good. Thank you.
I love that scratch back
Mhm.
and that connection to storytelling. That's, I think, with words, there's something there that we're trying to do
There
as far
is.
as like scratch back and get to the essence in a way, and the
Exactly.
surprises along the way with writing too
Yeah.
are often like the best parts, or what make a piece a piece.
Mhm. The history that's involved with it and the
Sure,
layers of stories.
yeah.
So yeah.
And another word from my discipline of anthropology is like the archaeology of a piece, that she discovers it in there. I mean, and I watched this happen, and it's magical, really phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite surprising how forgiving it is, because sometimes there are a lot of layers because I don't really like how it went, but I can paint over it. And truthfully, that adds to a much more interesting painting when you've got a lot of stuff there.
Totally, yeah.
And it is more complicated and there are more stories to tell. So
yeah, even just to see it caked up on the canvas, you see that process and that time, waiting a day till you can do the next layer.
right.
You
That's
know
kind of a
what
cool
we
time.
found is that artists know what cold wax is.
Right.
Some encaustic artists, but most people in America don't. Tami's been artist in residence at Denali 4 times at this lodge. So we have people from all over America and the world who watch her work and get her stuff. And they've never heard of it except one artist from Florida. They're fascinated by it. Now you can do this on paper also.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, and
Cradle
it's only about
board.
200 or 300 years old, the use of cold wax.
Okay.
One of the challenges with cold wax is it's kind of like oil and water don't mix. Well, that's really true when you add things to it. So there's a section I'll be talking about called Her Stories. And I do a lot of mixed media assemblage with my painting as well.
Yep.
And it's not like I can just glue something on top of it, on top of the wax, because it's not going to be archival. It won't stay.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of drills and hammers and screws and wires. And there's a lot of construction stuff that goes to this too, to make sure that it will stay and that it's archival. With encaustic, on the other hand, you can embed things like leaves and so forth. When I've embedded things and when I've added like the fabric on my pieces, I have to kind of think backwards how I want it to look and how I get to that. And there is basically it's an acrylic medium that I can use, like with the dresses, for example. I can coat my cradle board with the acrylic medium and basically glue that little dress on it. And then when that acrylic medium dries, that will accept the cold wax and oil.
Okay.
So I have to really prepare the surface, and I have to think about how I'm going to adhere something.
Yeah.
If I'm going to screw it in or nail it in or what have you, or if I need to use the acrylic
You know
medium.
what
Cool.
Tami needs is a barn.
Yeah.
And she, the whole family's creative. I mean, she could probably build this place. I mean, she hammers and saws and cuts, and very feminine lady. But her family's very creative, and A barn would work very good.
Yeah, yeah,
And the other thing is she loves antique stores, as she'll tell you, which helps me because the older I get, the better I am in her mind
yeah.
because she likes old things.
Gotcha.
And so whenever we travel, we're spending time in antiques, and she buys, you would not believe what she buys, and suddenly it appears on this art.
That makes it in there. Yeah,
Well, it's kind of funny. Carrie always tells me I just have too much stuff. And
yeah,
I always say, well, you know, it takes more space to gather antiques, and you don't take a lot of space when you collect words. So,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, a book saves space, right? Now we have so many things, so many ideas, so many collaborations here within this cover, you know. So that's a nice thing. So let's move to the book. Thank you for the
Sure.
explanation on cold wax.
my pleasure.
It's great to hear about all the construction and craft carpentry going on there, building. How was this book built? Because it's the three of you, right?
Right.
So
yeah. So Carrie and I were talking about this morning, and I guess I will start with antique stores. I love to go to antique stores, and I find things, and it's kind of a what if treasure hunt. And these little baby dresses caught my eye one time, and I was thinking, you know, there are stories behind these babies. There are humans that had these dresses, and it was kind of fun to think about what their history was. They all have a story to tell. We'll never know what they really were, but I was able to kind of take artistic license and make some images that portray a story. And I really like to tell stories with my art. And so this kind of opened the door for me to do that. And I made a handful of these, and I posted them on Facebook. Well, it caught the attention of K.N. Goodrich, who is the curator of the Cyrano's Gallery. It is now called Cyrano's Art Space Gallery in Anchorage. And she invited me to do a solo exhibit, and I was thrilled. And so I started making more, and COVID-19 hit, and everything came to an abrupt halt for everybody, and the art world was turned upside down, and exhibiting was no longer what it used to be. So anyway, she had to cancel the show, and I was really discouraged, very depressed about it. And,
Sure.
and Carrie knew that, and he suggested that maybe he could write some poems to accompany these dresses, and we might think about doing a book.
yeah,
And so that really encouraged me, and Carrie as well. And my studio kind of became my happy place again. And I was able to create 14 of these little dress paintings. And I called it The Woman Within. And Carrie wrote poems about these, and he'll tell you more about it. But there are also stories about women, and there are important women in his life. So there are stories about what I did with the painting, and then stories from a point of view of a man with the poems. And so we had this collection, and we invited Sandy Clevin from Cirque Press over, and she looked at these, and she offered us the opportunity to make a book, and we said, sure, we'll go for it.
yeah.
So we did, and that's kind of the story of how it happened. But in addition to that, I had been asked to do an exhibit at Snow City Cafe. Georgia Blue had asked me to do that from Georgia Blue Gallery in Anchorage. And she said, I'm sorry, these just won't work for Snow City. And I thought, oh, no. She said, no, they're so intimate. They have to be at the gallery, not the cafe. Nice. And so she invited us to do an exhibit, and that was in April. And Carrie and Richard Murphy, who is a wonderful photographer and friend, he has a section I'll talk about in the book as well. But the three of us were invited to do an exhibit at Georgia Blue. We had the book signing, and so the rest is history. But that's how it all started.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Thanks.
You know, I what I get from that is just that these opportunities to share work, like we need that as artists, right? Like you have an idea for stuff you want to work on, you found these dresses, you worked it, but then when you had the show, right now the work cranks up, and there's energy to it because it's going to get out there.
Yeah. That
gets pulled away, energy goes down. Okay, how are we going to share this book idea? And now suddenly there's a new idea to preserve, you know, your pieces in book form. And now Carrie's going to bring his perspective in with poetry, and now it's
Yeah.
taking on new energy, and then you get another gallery shot. So they're just, you know, chances, opportunities to publish, to share work. We need those. I think,
Absolutely.
you know, it keeps us, it energizes the next project, you know, because you're able to share it and get all that good. Even just, you know, not necessarily everyone comes up to you and says, oh, this was amazing. Some do, but you know, it's out there and people can experience it. It was born into the world.
You know, a lot of what you're saying, I mean, it just triggers so many thoughts, Sean. I mean, you are a very, what is it, collaborative kind of
For sure. Yeah.
supportive person. And so is Cirque Press.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of our world is kind of self-absorbed, and a lot of people think of artists as self-absorbed. But I like the team idea. To me, I listen to music when I write.
Yeah. Same.
And, you know, I read your writing, I read poetry, I read other stuff, and then I look at stuff and write. So I think we feed each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, Alaska thrives on that. I mean, there's no way to survive up here, I don't think, without helping each other,
Right.
and caring. And that's one of the reasons I like to come to Seward. There's people here from all over the world. And I really like the native people here. And I mean, they've been here a long time. But this collaboration to inspire, because the world's problems are not going to be solved by one person. You know, it takes cooperation. So anyway, and so as I watched her do these works from beginning to end. Now, you have to keep in mind that some people who are married say, you can really work together. Can you do that? Because artists have opinions.
Yeah.
I tell you, Tami Phelps has opinions.
Yeah.
And she was a Montessori school teacher, and this goes here and this goes here. I am a guy, and you know, who cares where it goes? I mean, put it somewhere. But we worked that all out, and so so she would do her art, and she, on every piece she does, she says, "What do you think?" or, you know, comment. Lately, she doesn't say, "What do you think?" She really has blossomed into kind of a creative, abstract artist. Her art is going to be illustrating the U.S. Global Climate Change Report in the fall.
Awesome.
It was selected as one of the 10 800 pieces that they selected for postcards that they're going to hand out at every time they go around America and do their presentation on this climate change we're into, that's destroying the world.
Yeah.
Her piece is called Methane Blues, and it's about permafrost stuff. So anyway, I watched her. She's really on her own now, but anyway,
it's cool. Your stuff is standing out. You know, with the London and now this.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You know, you have to please yourself. And there's a piece that I did called Under Her Skin. And it started off with when I first started teaching, and how, you know, you have parents and you have administration, you have kids, and you have it coming from all directions, and you want to do the best you can. And you pretty much have to develop a tough skin and believe that you're doing the right thing with confidence. And after 20 years of teaching in Montessori, I developed that. But when I first became an artist, I had to get a tougher skin in that venue. And so I'm working on that, and I feel more confident and, you know, capable of what I'm doing, and that it's the right thing. And it may not be the best thing, but, you know, if I can have a do-over and I paint it again, that works. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I just thought of something, Tami. You start with a quote. Why don't you read that quote? We didn't talk about doing this, but she in high school went to West High, and she had a coach in gym. She was the captain of the team. The funny thing is that at these shows they would say, "And the winner is Tami." There was another Tami who was a lot better.
It was never me.
She would win, but this woman.
Excuse me, I might need to borrow your book.
Yep,
this
you
one
got
is
it.
my copy because it's missing a few things. But
she dedicated. She is in touch with her old coach. It's a woman.
Cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Mrs. Shaw, and she was everything a gymnastic coach would be. I mean, I admired her. I was scared to death of her.
Yeah.
She was good, and we, she gave me a book when I graduated, and it was a little treasury of poetry. And she put stars by different things and dog-eared and so forth. And I've had that book since I graduated from West. And she wrote something here, which was kind of a foundation for the book. And so it says, to Tami, poetry should be the one piece of candy the little girl who grew up in a sod house in North Dakota got at Christmas time. She would hold it, smell it, hide it away, take it out again, taste it, and somehow make it last for a long time. Enjoy poetry one little taste at a time. From Mrs. Shaw. A Little Treasury of American Poetry, edited by Oscar Williams, 1948, was given as a graduation gift in 1976 to Tami Phelps from Mrs. Vicky Shaw, her gymnastics coach. Tami was the captain of the West Anchorage High School gymnastics team. Mrs. Shaw wrote this inscription in the book that Tami cherishes.
Cool.
And I contacted her, I sent her a book, and we're back in contact after a certain number of years from graduating.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's memorable.
Yeah, it really, really was.
So talking about poetry as candy, which I really like that metaphor for sure, and trying to make it last.
Mhm.
Carrie, should we? You want to
Yeah.
poetry candy for us?
Yeah.
Some
one of
Time
the-
for that?
Yes, thank you, Sean. And David McElroy, who wrote the blurb for this book, is a real poet, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
published 2 books at the University of Alaska Press.
Candy
now-
Factory.
He now calls me a poet. Now, I know I'm a novelist and an essayist and an anthropologist. It's very difficult for me to accept that title.
Same.
To me, you really have to do a lot more than I do, but I write poetry.
Well, publish some poems in quality book like this. That gets you closer. Close.
My first poem was published when I was 7.
So you're an original poet. Yeah.
I must confess, however, that I think my 2nd grade school teacher in Terry, Montana,
Yeah.
population 500, my mother was a school teacher, taught me to read and write when I was 5 and 6. On her counter in Terry, Montana, was Ayn Rand. I mean, she read, she was a feminist, and she supported Jenkins back in, anyway. The editor of the weekly newspaper, the Terry Tribune, played bridge at our home once a month. So I think that had something to do
That's how it works.
with my poem. So
This is
But,
91.7 KIBH FM Seward Sound Words. So on the radio and also on our YouTube channel at Sacktown, we are recording there, and this episode will be archived there along with other Seward Sound Words episodes. Carrie, Dean Feldman, and Tami Phelps are here from Anchorage to share their book, The Woman Within, Memory as a Muse. Carrie's got some poetry for us right now.
all right, this goes with a work of Tami's called Expectations that I looked at, that has a little girl, and the stomach part is open where the womb is, and there's a nest that she painted in there, so that it's, if you're a woman, it's expected that you have babies. And the other thing we agreed is I will write whatever these things inspire, and they might not be about this thing. And she said, fine.
Yeah.
And she reads everything I write first and tells me, does it make sense? Now, remember, I tend to get emotional when I read, but I'm going to try. Expectations. Holding my daughter, she wails her demand to be fed. The only sound she seems to know after a few spins around the sun. I say, if I had breasts, I could feed you. And imagine orbs on my chest that she sucks and finds food. Felt good, but strange, like a sci-fi movie, which actually they are, these bodies we inhabit, but do not invent. As if we are stories waiting to be told by the anatomy into which we slip, like comfortable, peculiar gloves. Wombs become thoughts, become wishes, become babies. So that was one of the first.
Yeah, that's early in the book. That's nice.
The wombs become I was going to read another one.
Yeah,
I think I can get through this one too.
sweet.
So this one is called "You Remember When," and it accompanies a baby dress that she painted called "Meet Daisy." It's just a nice thing. Do you remember when they held you after storms? So many over the years, never asking for thanks. No matter you deserve your wreck, no matter the fault, always their arms, hearts open to you. The most lovely bay man knows after a rough sail. Are you glad you changed their diapers? Glad you let her bike ram you that day on a road instead of riding to her death on a busy street? Glad you let the other curl fingers in your hair as you sang her to sleep? Glad you drove her to the western shore to her new life, her kids to follow, all now grown, as she sings grandkids to sleep. Tiny fingers curl in her hair. Words arrive. Words from each arrive each spring, as surely as an equinox. No matter your innocence, wealth, or fame. Happy birthday, dear brother. I love you. So
Nice.
anyway, that's we email each other almost every day.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nicely done.
Years
I
back.
mean, you sound like me at the farmer's market. And you know, even just looking at the words, like, you know, with poetry, I think it's hard sometimes, okay, I don't quite get this, but I felt the heart in that on the read, you know, and that's all we want, I think, as an audience, like to just feel that there's heart in the words and that it matters to the writer. And that's definitely there. And the poetics, which are definitely going on.
I can do without the dramatics.
Yeah. But, you know, people are going to love that. And that's good.
Somebody
I appreciate that.
told me, this woman said, Jerry, look, here's a secret. Take a pin that's sharp and stick it in your finger while you're reading.
Yeah.
So that the pain.
Yeah.
And I thought, no,
Yeah.
I bleed all over.
No, that was perfect.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I think the male perspective on the woman within is interesting to me. And then knowing that Tami, you know, is kind of editing this book, certainly editing his words, there's no poem in there that's going to go in that you don't want in there. So he has like this nice setup to really write, you know, that type of stuff, like about women, about the women in his life from a male perspective, which I think can be critiqued, you know, because he's not a woman. But then having you in the corner, in the driver's seat, that's just a neat setup that really helped this project, I think, because I read all the poems this morning and they feel right. They feel careful. They feel appropriate. They feel like they're adding, you know, an interesting perspective to now as I see the dresses. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like kind of editing his work or working, or maybe both of you? You know, I also love this. Okay, I'm going to look at this piece of art and I'm going to write what it emotes in me. I'm going to write from that. That's how everyone was written. There were no dresses that were done from a poem he wrote. Right.
Correct.
It's all your stuff.
Right. Yeah. And that was interesting. At first, I really had some difficulty with that because I tend to be more of a one-to-one correlation kind of person with certain things. And I knew the stories that I had behind these paintings, and I might suggest something that Kerry would include that goes with what I had in mind.
Yeah.
And
he would correct me.
Yeah.
I'm a professor.
Yeah. Well, there's just two strong visions going on here. And then we still have the photographer for other parts.
Right,
but so those, you know, someone's got to give there.
Yeah. But it was authentic. What I did was authentic, and what Kerry did was authentic. Right. And I really think that comes across when we both have authentic points. They're both about women. And one comment with the first section in the book, The Woman Within, it has to do kind of with more universal type artwork and stories on my point and Kerry's poems, where the second section, and I'll read a couple of these from the second section called Her Stories, those are a little bit more personal to my life. And that's where I did some writing. So that's kind of where I have my personal input as Kerry did on the poems. So
cool.
I hope that answers it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's move to that section. But
Sure.
I just one last point on, and you guys can think on this and get back to me. Is there a collaboration, a dress and a poem that is a favorite of yours and a favorite of yours where you thought that they complemented each other really well, or the two authentic pieces together? This one really stands out, and you can get back to me on that.
Oh,
Well, I gave her an idea. I just whispered.
Yeah.
So you have one that you have in mind where you thought your
based on
poem.
what you said, it's pretty. Oh, that one's
oh,
good.
actually, this one.
That's pretty good.
This one.
Yeah, you love
Ruth-
second grade,
yeah.
right?
Ruth-
No.
It's called Meet RBG.
Ruth Bader
And so
Ginsburg,
this is
baby.
Ruth Bader
Nice.
Ginsburg. And the whole point with what Kerry wrote really captured what I was doing with these dresses. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a baby at one point.
Yeah.
And of course, we know where she grew up and where she went. And Kerry's poem,
It's a haiku.
it's very short, but it talks about we connected
All
with
right.
this.
When I was in the second grade, I was sitting there at Terry, Montana, population 500, and the teacher came in after recess and said, "Who wrote 'I Love Carrie' and chalk on the girls' side of the school?" I just about died.
Right.
And all my friends were going, and I thought, I hope it's
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Janice.
Yeah.
I hope it's not
Right.
Myrna. And I never talked to any girls in my class. Janice raised her hand. I did. And walked up and she erased it. Well, I was just,
Wow.
so that's what
Owned
that
up.
is.
Who you wanted it to be had written it?
Yeah. Who wrote
Because
it?
I connected to this one a lot.
Oh,
Yeah, because just like second grader, you have a crush. It's like, no one wrote "I love Sean" on the board,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but I wish they did, or just like you hear something, oh, I hope it's her. So read that one. And then we'll go to Tami, her stories.
By the way, when I was 18, after I moved to a big city and came back to Terry,
Yeah.
I got involved in sports, and I had some stories written about me. I was all stayed in 3 sports there in Montana.
Yeah.
And I came home, so I'm a big shot, and I come to this little town, and I'm walking to my grandpa's house across this gravel road. He was a homesteader there, 1916. And I saw the most beautiful cowgirl I've ever seen in my life, strutting across the gravel with a ponytail and a cowboy hat. And I said, "Grandpa, who's that?" It's Janice Stroke.
Wow.
Whoa.
She was the second grader that.
Yeah, she was
that.
the second grader. But okay, so love a haiku. Who wrote "I love Kay" in chalk on the bricks recess? He hoped it was her.
Nice.
No. So this, I don't know if you want to do this one. The other, what about the butterfly?
Yeah, we don't. There was another one about a butterfly when I was, oh gosh, maybe 4 years old. Not yet. Maybe kindergarten. We lived in Sydney, Nebraska, and our house had a water pump in the backyard. And one day I was pumping water, and all these monarch butterflies
cool.
came and landed on me, and it was just magical.
Neat.
And I thought they loved me, but they were just thirsty.
Yeah.
But I did a piece about that. And then Kerry also wrote a piece with that. And we have a granddaughter who absolutely loves little butterflies, or did at the time. So Kerry wrote about that. And that was another one that had a strong connection between us as far as the poetry and the image.
Carrie's feeling strong about that. Yeah.
So I'll read this one. It was, and Tami made all these little butterflies. I don't
Right.
know how she does it.
So this is when you're talking about like getting other, not just wax, like pieces of metal, adhering things to it. Yeah, I see that
She
happening
made
here.
that. It's a uterus inside this little cloth thing that she made. I mean, she made all
There
this
we go.
stuff.
Awesome.
And when Mela was 3, we sent her caterpillars
Our granddaughter.
Uh-huh.
in Colorado, and she fed them and watched, and with a net, and watched them become butterflies. And then after they were a certain age, they were ready to go. She fed them sugars and stuff. And I'll read what happened.
Cool.
She's now started school a week ago.
All right.
First grade.
The title of this poem is "What Do You Say?" What do you say to your daughter's daughter the first time you see her in their bungalow home, asking a dog to move aside from center stage? How do they make a harbor for life inside their bodies, just as they received, just as this bundled baby might someday do? And oh, the delight to play hide and seek when she's 4, her delight in fooling me, like her mom when she was young. Helping her grow up, feel grandpa love and presents and Elsa dress, caterpillars to nurture to winged miracles. Her announcing, I'm a mother too now, age 3. She feeds her babies leaves, then sugar power in oranges for flight muscles. And one day she announces, it's time to set them free. Like mothers must do, and fathers. Though we cry inside. She opens the butterfly cage. Sunny day, it's time. One by one, wings flutter. Find the opening. Flee to the unknown. But one clings to home. Afraid? I wonder if my daughter feared flying too. You can do it, my granddaughter says to her reluctant child. Fly.
Nice.
And that butterfly took off. Now, my daughter took a video of this. It was just so amazing.
Yeah.
And she goes, you can do it.
That's cool. I mean, to connect your granddaughter's moment to Tami, your moment, right? Like with the butterflies all around you.
Right.
Pretty
And
neat.
they
I can
were-
see why that one stands out.
I'm sorry. They were both butterflies. Oftentimes I'll do a picture and I think it's clearly about such and such. And Carrie's poem is clearly not about
Right,
such and such.
This
but
one-
somehow they do connect. And
Yeah,
this was more of a correlation than others.
Yeah, but a not obvious connection like in some of the others. I think that's great too. And like often you when you put out work, readers are going to make their own connections between the words and the image that neither of you could have planned for, because that's just part of a great thing with making art.
Yeah.
All right, so section 2 is her
Yes,
stories.
It is, and I'd like to read a little bit about this, if I may. to
Please,
set
yeah.
the stage for what these are and how they are different. With the first section, I adhered these things with the acrylic wax. This section, her stories, is more of assemblage, with the wires and the things that I had to attach in a different manner. So this is where the drills and the hammers and the sawing and everything came in as needed. But her stories, cold wax and assemblage painting. A day after I first held my granddaughter, her great-grandmother died. Mela was 42 days old. Her great-grandma, Peaches, just days short of 100 years. The timing of the occasion was emotionally stunning. That was the day my husband and I hung the dress in the tree. That was the day I began to reflect on the meaning of a woman's life, including my own, and start to tell her stories through my art. I knew that day affected me. What I didn't know was how deep the feelings went. Later, I went to a recycled hardware store with 2 of my brothers in Portland, Oregon, where I bought a bucket of rusty metal rods. They told me that the rods were used in construction to hold forms when pouring concrete walls. I use them as scrolls attached to my paintings. They are a way for me to unroll bits of sheeness in my artwork, a way to honor the art and the stories I have written, inspired by the vintage dress we hung and photographed in the tree on a cold January day in Longmont, Colorado, 2017. And so I've selected a couple of these stories that I wanted to share, and I was telling Sean earlier that that my father had passed away, and it was actually the the day of the opening of the Biennale, and so that was a hard day, ups and downs, hard. It was catch and release in many ways, and that kind of became the metaphor for the whole trip and many things since then. But so both of these are definitely inspired by my dad, and I kind of want to dedicate this to Dad today. This first one is called Her Do-Over Recital. Dad had a music store in Greeley, Colorado, next door to Maudie's Head Shop. My sister was 14 and I was 12. We lived to be groovy. It was 1969. Our visits to see Dad at his store were really opportunities to swoon over the older teenage guitar players and drummers who would jam there on occasion. Sometimes Dad let us choose guitar picks for our growing collection before we'd go next door to wonder at the strange wares at Maudie's Head Shop. I decided one day I wanted to take piano lessons at Dad's music store. Perfect. We had a player piano at home, the kind where you put in a music roll and pump the pedals and voila, piano music. That was pretty much my idea of practicing on the piano. For my first piano recital, I wanted to play Yesterday, Leaving on a Jet Plane, or Angel of the Morning. My piano teacher, Mary, had other plans. Rocking Horse Swing. I can still hear that piece in my head. I don't like it any more now than I did then. Not what I'd call groovy, hence it did not make it to the top of my practice list. The big recital day arrived at Dad's music store. I did not know how to play Rocking Horse Swing. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. Excruciating embarrassment in front of everyone, especially my dad. I do have to say I learned a lot taking piano lessons, and even learned a little bit about how to play the piano. By making this piece of art, Her Do-Over Recital, I made peace with my 12-year-old self and hopefully my dad. Feeling groovy.
Nice.
Her dad is Sid Phelps. He's in the South Dakota Music Association Hall of Fame. He's a jazz trumpet player.
Oh.
He started with a couple other guys in Anchorage. Music is Fun program that they still, I think, use in the Anchorage School District. He was in the military. He played in the military band. He had jazz bands in South Dakota, Texas. He played in, what's that island off of Australia? Tasmania.
Yeah. Indonesia.
And I listened to his music he's amazing. He does Dixieland.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
He's from
that's
South
Yeah.
Dakota.
and Dixieland is, happy music. And every time I'd listen to it, I'd cry. That's my dad.
Yeah.
But anyway, they don't still do Music is Fun in the district. I wish they did.
Yeah.
But yeah. But he was
And those are
instrumental,
real
so to speak.
antique. You found those antiques at an antique store, the piano things, right?
Yeah, the piano keys. That's an example of how I screwed things on.
Right.
And you can see the scroll in the picture. And that's
Right.
kind of, like I mentioned, unrolling the story or the
Yeah.
scroll of the story.
They all hang from a scroll like that, a lot of these
But
pieces.
The other thing to keep in mind is Tami is an accomplished flautist,
Okay.
Yeah, all of us.
and she plays the
It's-
harp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, as
she's
Dad
the
is
whole
a
family.
musician,
Sure. Yeah.
I told Dad I was really glad he was not a proctologist.
Yeah.
All of us kids play music, and at the time, of course, we didn't like it. But now, what a gift!
Well, and I'm sure it influenced you as a painter in cold wax,
Absolutely.
right? Just spending
Absolutely.
time on art is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah,
We're going to do it in
absolutely.
this house. Yeah.
And so the next one is also influenced my dad and honors Dad. It's a little bit more upbeat. This one is called Her Dad's Metronome, and it's about rope swings and the rhythm of rope swings. Her Dad's Metronome. When I was 6, I was going to join the circus and be a tightrope walker, thanks to my musician dad, Sid Phelps. He made rope swings for us 5 kids in every backyard we had growing up, from Nebraska to Colorado to Alaska. One swing was inside our house. I became very good at tricks on the ropes. Once, after a huge night windstorm in Sydney, Nebraska, I woke up to the delight of our sunny backyard filled with tumbleweeds. A beautiful sight to behold. I made my way to the rope, held it tightly, climbed up the fence to the narrow top ledge. I used this fence ledge as my runway before I swung bravely out and around the sea of danger. Toes pointed. After my swoop above the tumbleweeds, I delicately landed, running expertly along the 2x4 fence ledge to continue my daring circle of death performance over and over and over. Each time I imagined how my sparkly fringed costume with fishnet stockings looked to the crowd. I could hear the roaring applause. I thought about what my stage name would be. I can't help but think of the satisfaction and joy my dad must have had watching each of us kids, and sometimes even Mom, as we rhythmically swung like a metronome on the rope swings he made for us. Through this painting, her dad's metronome, I hang on to and share the warm memories of sunny skies, family, and the joys of long ago.
Nice. Thank you, Tami.
Thank you.
I mean, this book's about family, right?
Yeah.
For both you, among other things. Thank you guys for sharing your words.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to see you get moved. You know, I get,
Thank you.
yeah. So this is the background on these is cold wax, correct?
Yes,
Is this where you're talking about like the
correct.
cradle board or?
Right, and that's on a cradle board. And on this one, on the bottom in particular, you can really see the scratching back. So those
Yeah.
darker colors were underneath. And
Gotcha.
so that's kind of the history being revealed through that.
The center sphere is a newer layer, right?
Yes,
That didn't
that's
get
probably the final layer.
cool.
Mhm, mhm.
So much texture.
Yeah. And the cold wax itself kind of offers a little translucency. It's not like you can see through it, but you can see there's something a little different about that than other kinds of paint. So the cold wax, before you add any pigment to it, is somewhat translucent.
Gotcha.
And there are different qualities and different levels of translucency you can use with your oil paint. But there's just something about the texture that drew me to it.
Yeah,
It's a little
Picks up the
different.
light, right?
Yeah,
Almost like,
exactly.
I mean, I'm kind of thinking of like glacial ice, right? Like that
Yeah,
type of
similar,
kind of
yes.
look into it, crystal. Or,
And Tami, as I look at it, I mean, it looks like 6 layers of paint under there.
Oh, yeah.
But why don't you say, how did you use the yellow? When she does art, sometimes I have this conversation with her,
yeah.
to just understand, why is there yellow up there and yellow here? And I mean, what
Right.
are you
Like-
looking at, or why did that happen?
I guess when I think about swinging and all the rope swings that we had, it was always joyful and wonderful. And that the yellow is kind of a warmth, a sunshine, just
Yeah.
kind of a little beacon of joy. And so I that's the yellow.
When you were in Drezzo, Italy, studying with Rebecca, did she teach you any kind of, what do you call it, symmetry, or I don't know, what do you want to call that, where you do the yellow stuff around, or you don't?
Sure, we studied a lot about composition, and I'm not sure.
Well, I was just wondering. I mean, there's
Balanced.
Yeah.
You like order, but
Mhm.
there's all, we talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
You like order. I like chaos.
Yeah.
And yet I have order in my chaos, and you have chaos in your order. But I mean, there's order here. But I mean,
Yeah, there's order,
the
but
balance or
there's a
something?
balance, and there's a little bit of things that are not particularly ordered as well with that yellow. It's not exactly what do I want to say? Balanced. I don't know.
And you scratch back. I mean, that's just. I'm amazed at these things, to tell you the
Yeah.
truth. I mean,
You get to see
how
it
do you
up close.
do that?
Yeah.
And this cloth, what is that? that you put around a wire. What is that stuff?
Oh, that is like a twine, and then the little bench seat has musical instruments on it, and it's very much a musically metronome symbol.
There's a what do you call it in here? There's a ballet thing, and in it, you embedded some kind of music background.
Is that this one?
Yeah. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah. That one. Yeah, there's a piece of music that was from Romick Junior High, and it said, "Do not remove from Romick Junior High." And so I found that in my stash of stuff, but it was a copy. I figured I'm okay. But that's kind of buried underneath, and that's kind of scratching back the story and the history. And so I'm very inspired by music with my artwork and antiques and many other things. The ballet slippers, although I was not in ballet, I was a gymnast. And so that one's called Muscle Memory. And there's definitely muscle memory with the pieces that I do. Even though I wasn't a ballerina, there's muscle memory with that for sure.
Yeah. I can see it. Oh, go ahead, Kerry.
And she picked those shoes, and you never know, she found these
Yeah.
ballet slippers, I think, in Colorado, and said, "Oh, I'm going to get those."
Yeah.
And then she cut out the music and put that in and does all the stitching. Now, tell them about your magnificent sewing machine. She sews.
Yeah, I do a lot of sewing for many different things, but when I went to school in Hawaii after I graduated, at that time there was an exchange program between Alaska and Hawaii, and I figured, why not?
Cool. Yeah.
And so I like to say I learned a lot, and I went to school on occasion.
Yeah.
But it was my first year of college, and I bought a sewing machine there in Wailuku, Hawaii, on the big island of Hawaii, not far from Hilo, and it was $50. And I still have that sewing machine, and that's what I use. That's my sewing machine. And you never know when you might need to sew something. So that's my tried and true.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That I really found inspiring in this, and it helped me write, a heck of a poem.
If I don't say so.
Where's the one size does not fit all, Tammy Jo?
Oh.
Her middle name is Joe, and I call it Tammy Jo.
Yeah. This is 91.7 KIBH FM Seward Sound Words on our YouTube channel at Sacktown. Tami Phelps and Kerry Dean Feldman are here and are sharing. I mean, this is a dynamic book. You get a lot. I do want to say, you get a lot with this book. We haven't touched on Richard's sections with the photography. Hopefully we can a bit. There's an interview at the end where Kerry interviews Tami, and this book is available on Amazon, correct?
It's available at
Barnes &
Noble.
Okay.
Online. All of our books are.
Oh, Barnes & Noble. Okay.
And it's available in Anchorage.
Yeah.
And they also have a hardback that's more expensive. This one's $22, but they have one that they want to push for Christmas.
Sure.
That is like a coffee table book.
Mm-hmm. And they have it in stock there. We just had a book signing here this last weekend.
Fun.
And they have it in stock, ready to go. So,
cool.
Yeah.
This now she has a lot of dress patterns. This is page
that's neat. Yeah.
36. One size does not fit all. And as she was thinking about
that's cool
women, what's a woman? I mean, I'm an anthropologist. A woman has an X chromosome, two X chromosomes.
Right.
And I have an X and a Y, and everything about a human being is on the X. The Y chromosome just gives you a deep voice, and it makes you look like a man. But my vision is on everything is on the X chromosome. Some people, discover now. Okay, I'll just read my poem.
Yeah.
And let you figure out what it's about. One size does not fit all. Like, what's a woman? I mean, this was, I'm a professor. I had class. Okay, here we go. This is called Adam's ribs. And as you know, in the Old Testament, God took a rib from a man and made a woman. All right. All righty. So a woman is almost a man. Really? And they have two X's and I want, okay. Adam's ribs. A hand raised to dispute the prof's lecture. when do realizations come after being born that words can fail? How many twirls around the sun? Different truth blossoms in young bodies, unable to be ignored. Male and female, the prophet said, reflecting the story in Genesis. I'm both, the student blurted. Short hair parted to the side, belted jeans, a young man. After class, the prof wanted to apologize. It's okay, gotta run, see my gynecologist. So, which of Adam's ribs did the Creator use to make him, her, them, or give license to harm such divinely complex humanity? So that's a little edgy poem. And so she took,
Nice last line.
yeah, and that was, I got to go see my gynecologist. He was both.
Yeah.
His parents did not. He came that way.
Yeah.
And they decided not to change him. So she took different parts of a dress pattern, put them together, and I just anyway. Moving on to
That's a nice match. I like this piece too a lot, Tami.
Thank you.
So in that red background,
Thank you, Sean.
such divinely complex humanity. Humans complex. So I know you've had a lot of, we could talk a little about Cirque. I want to, you guys get to what you want to talk about as well. So maybe we could organize on that as we kind of enter the final segment of the show.
Sure.
I want to keep talking. I just have a little bit of a time crunch,
Thank
but
you.
we're doing okay.
Sure.
It's great to
Could
sit
I
with you
mention
guys.
Real quick,
Go ahead.
Richard
Yep.
Murphy.
Yeah, let's get to that.
His part of it was just amazing. And we did a collaborative project years prior, and it first showed at the International Gallery, and it was approved by Don Moore and the other board members there. And that was one of the reasons I started the book, because I have a history of a lot of different artwork about women. Who knew? And really, when I thought about it, there was enough for a book and more. But my point being is that Richard Murphy had seen some of my work. He approached me and he said, Tami, I've got all these photographs. I was wondering if you would like to collaborate with me. Well, I was honored. I mean, Richard is just really amazing. And he is the former photo editor
of Anchorage Daily News for 25 years.
Oh, cool.
And a fine photographer and a good friend. So we collaborated on this work. And I painted my first one, added his photo to it and showed it to him. And really, without even talking about it, we were very much on the same page, where it was about the life cycle of woman. And his photographs were about the life cycle of his wife at that time, who passed away. She had breast cancer, and my mom had died from early onset Alzheimer's. And so it had to do with the life cycle of important women in our lives. And I won't take time to read this now, but I did want to give a shout out to Richard and thank him for making this happen. I mean, that was a real start to the Woman Within book. And
because the whole section is dedicated to his photos. I want to show some of those, because you took his photos, then you added your touch with the cold wax and made kind of a collage of the two.
Right.
And then these are just very short poems, right? That you wrote.
Yes.
Yep.
Carrie wrote the poetry with them.
Nice.
They're his photographs of an amaryllis plant that he planted, and it was born and it died one winter. He was grieving. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Depressed. And so he did this. This is amazing.
Is that the one you're talking about? I'm just going to throw these up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one.
Kind of micro or macro, whatever, micro.
I don't know. They all have their story, and I won't go into it now, but it's a big part of the book. And one other thing with this particular one, page 76, it kind of goes into a lot of Montessori methodology, and a lot of my work really focuses on that, where it's very hands-on and very grounded in earth, and that would be a nice example of one of the Montessori influences I have with my work.
And Richard just flew east to what state? Rhode Island, to do a show with his sister, Vermont. To do a show with his sister. He's from Vermont. She's an artist, and it's about Alaska landscapes.
Here's the one where kind of every, you have the dress
Oh,
motif
yeah.
kind of carried through in this other
And
part.
that's her and her sister, Sue, her older sister, they talk every day.
Nice.
Sue's her guide.
Yeah, and that one's called Shadowing, and
So you started using Richard's photography, and it's like, okay, we're going to do some photography. I could bring some family photos in, right? Because that's your photo.
that
of
is
you
my
and-
photo.
Yeah.
And then that's his amaryllis, all the amaryllis in there.
And that
his.
adds
It's
something,
amazing.
like right on the. And just that question, like Carrie, going to your point about collaboration, Richard comes to you, I want to collaborate, like
Right.
wherever you're at in your art life, like let's say you're not making art. I mean, you probably are. Like to get something like that coming to you is just like that energizes you so much. Like this person who I know well wants to work with me. It's like the ultimate compliment. And then suddenly you have half a project with their work they're going to throw. It's just like energize you. We need that,
It really does.
and like, so that was part of the genesis of this book. And then the show being, canceled due to COVID and wanting to do a book, those kind of just came together. I mean, you get like several art shows in this book.
Yes,
which is cool.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
And Richard and Tami and I are thinking about collaborating on an environmental climate change book. We don't know yet, but that's what he's working on now, documenting climate change in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Snedden Professor of Photography Journalism at UAF and a distinguished professor at Anchorage also. But this last one is
So
interesting.
pleased to meet you,
Mhm.
Tami. Can you, because that'll get us to the fourth part. There are
Sure,
4 parts
that's
to the book.
the
Well, and then the
fourth.
interview, but
Great.
Can
Yeah.
you-
The Pleased to Meet You, I entered
got some time still.
that sculpture in the No Big Heads competition last year at UAA at the Hugh McPeck Gallery. And it was accepted in, and
Yes.
each piece,
Yeah.
yes, each piece could not be more than 12 inches in diameter. And so I had this little dress that I made into this sculpture. And the hands inside are my hands that I have molded. And then there's an egg that I hollowed out and put that in there as well. And so the Pleased to Meet You has to do with kind of the full circle thing of my mom, and I am the egg, and then having, being born and kind of, what would she have said? Pleased to meet you.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna show a picture of your mom and you. Okay.
Yeah. So I incorporated some family pictures there. So yeah, and when you mention this book is about family, it is very much about family and relationships, and that's an example of it.
So this last section focuses on this one sculpture piece and kind of
Correct.
some pieces to it. Yeah. And it looks like that was shown somewhere. Yeah.
That was at the No Big Heads exhibit, UAA.
It's
last
a
year.
national competition.
And then if like me, you enjoyed seeing Carrie and Tami, talk back and forth here, there's a great energy and fun. There's a whole interview where you interview Tami on her work at the end of this book.
Yeah, and I turned the recorder on and we walked around and talked, and then I had to type it and then we edited it. But people like that because she is the featured artist in this international journal called the Encaustic Art Magazine from New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico. The museum. She's in the Museum of Encaustic Art in Santa Fe, and Doug Marins wrote a blurb for the book on the back of it, and he said, this is a treasure. They really flipped over this book. It's like, wow. And then they said, we would like to feature you in our magazine that goes to 40 nations in June. So it's there in that it's featured there, in which she has to explain how she makes this art. That's what they wanted to kind of know. So this is, there's a lot of ripples from this piece of work. I thought you'd find that interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like there is a lot here. And it was great having the visuals for our show here today. Definitely a top show as far as being able to show art. I definitely want to congratulate both of you because, I mean, you guys are rolling. Like you're putting out books, your art's being displayed. I feel like you're really just at a nice point in your careers. Like, you served as a professor for many years, and now it's time for your books to get out. And you are, it's definitely motivating and inspiring to me to see you pump out books. So you've hit a nice traction and nice roll here, and you as well. And I could feel it right here. You guys are going strong.
And you are important, Sean. You bring together a lot of people down here. I'm aware a little bit of your correspondence in Kenai. You got some writers there that you like. I mean, you guys correspond. And doing the show like this we're just grateful for it. And I look forward to your next novel or whatever it's going to be.
Novel.
So let's get to it, buddy.
Let's do it. Yeah. No, and I do love your point about how Alaska is collaborative, right? Helping each other out, right? You need something. So I think that works for the literary and for the arts, certainly too. We're small. We help each other. I mean, my career, I'll call it that, has really taken a big jump as far as just me feeling good about what I'm doing when I turn to collaboration and the writing circles and feedback.
Yes.
Like I didn't, that, and so now I'm on this whole nother plane, and it's not as much about publishing. It's just about kind of living a full writer's life. It is about publishing, and yes, let's get to it. But I'm just enjoying, even this summer, we kept it going with an open mic at the farmer's market. We met for coffee, and just to be around writers and contribute to that energy and feel that energy, like it lifts you up. There's been way less ruts in my writing life because of collaboration, because of writing community. So
and you know what? We got to tell more. We will tell more people in Anchorage
Definitely.
about this show.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And our editor, Sandy Clevin, you interviewed.
Yep.
And she wants to put this on her website or something.
Yeah, grab it. Yeah.
And to let people we know in Fairbanks know about it, because this is also public radio.
Yep.
And it's community. It's not this commercial kind of got to make a buck.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing it.
Yes,
you bet. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, you got to write. I mean, I'm waiting.
Yeah. I know. I finished a draft of a novel last year. It's got some work. I write in the winters. I serve tables in the summer and keep kind of the writing ideas going. But like the sentence every morning with coffee, that starts like, October.
And you got some
November.
Kids or a kid, a child?
Yeah, a couple kids.
Really?
So,
You're a busy guy.
Yeah. Hell yeah, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention real quick. I know we've mentioned Sandra Clevin.
Yeah.
Also Michael Burwell.
Totally.
And also Carly Eagley. And she was the design person for the book. So shout out to all of them.
Search Journal, Sandy Clevin, Mike Burwell. Thank you, Tammy. That's a good thing to end on.
Carly went to South Africa when we were going to wrap this up, and we had to work to South Africa. Put us slow, and as a result, I didn't get it reviewed. Anyway, it was quite an experience.
Yeah.
She's working on a degree in whatever.
I think physical therapy.
Physical therapy.
Great team. Had a good opportunity, and thank you again.
Thank
Sean.
you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Yeah.
Go.
I guess I got to get them. Yeah. This has been another episode of Seward Sound Words here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward and on our YouTube channel at Sacktown. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, you make a good point. Anchorage, like I've always said, local writers reading their work live on the air. By local, I mean Alaska, and the plan has always been to anyone who wants to be on the show, you got to come down to Seward. That's how we have it set up now. But I think it's pretty fun to come into this studio and break it down. You get to come to Seward too. So get in touch. And we'd love to have you on. We're going to be building the show back up here as we get into the fall and winter. That's really our prime time to produce content. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Tammy, for sharing today and for being here. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you so much, Sean. It was
my
Thank
pleasure.
you to your staff
Thank
also
you.
for
That's right.
helping us.
Thanks.
Adios. Thank you.